On this episode of the show, I have with me Brooke Motta. She is CEO and co-founder at RAD Security. We're going to be talking about, well, a bit about her journey, background from sales to becoming a co-founder. We're going to talk to her about becoming more technical along the way and being a first-time founder in a very technical space. And we're going to ask her how some of her intangibles have translated through to being a co-founder and CEO and how RAD Security came about. Brooke, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Before we dive in, it'd be great if you told everyone what RAD Security does.
Sure. So, RAD Security has built a cloud application detection and response platform. And in the past 9 months, we've added an AI agentic layer that sits on top that allows for our customers to query the data that's uncovered through RAD's proprietary platform, as well as integrate it with existing platforms that they already use in order to create efficiencies in their organization.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we're going to talk about your background a bit. Obviously mentioned you are a CEO and co-founder currently. You started off in sales and you spent quite a number of years working at some fantastic companies. I guess talk to us a little bit about that the background of sales that has led you to being now a co-founder.
Sure. Yeah. So I started my career in sales a very long time ago as an early employee at a company called Rapid7, based in Boston, where I worked for almost 10 years and watched the company grow pretty rapidly. And I watched as figure out product market fit, figure out go to market, and then high velocity selling. And so I was on a rocket ship for my first ever cybersecurity sales opportunity. And so I learned so much from that experience that I take forward with me every day. And so, now moving into a CEO sort of role, I draw a lot of parallels between what a sales organization does in maintaining a pipeline to a roadmap and how the engineering and product organization have a roadmap. And to me, in overly simplified terms, they're the same. And so, and one can't work without the other. And so it's really important to drive sort of the urgency and efficiency that you see so often in sales throughout the organization. And so having sales as a background is also really helpful for an early stage startup, because when you first start, you don't have any customers at all. So you have to manufacture something from nothing. And to have had the skills and that experience set before has really helped in that way. Where I think had you not been in sales before, it'd probably be extra challenging to take that on.
Absolutely. And I think that's an interesting conversation point we don't always hear within startups. I think a lot of times we have multiple technical people that start a company and they go looking for their first go-to-market hire, and they have to figure those pieces out. And that's actually sometimes a really difficult hire. For you guys, obviously, you came in with that responsibility. When it came time to wear the CEO hat and still have that go-to-market hat, do they work together well? Because obviously they have different levels of context. So I was just kind of curious of context switching between those two different mindsets.
Between a CEO mindset and a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer mindset, is that what you mean?
Well, I guess at RAD, I mean, switching, you have your CEO title, and obviously, you're the person initially responsible for sales and go-to-market during the early days. Sometimes switching between those hats, even though it might not seem drastic, it's still overhead and does have a bit of a penalty associated with it with time.
Yeah. There have been moments where I gravitate towards that role and catch myself and say, okay, there's an entire organization that needs to run smoothly and efficiently and together. And so, but I've been in management roles, managing teams of dozens of people. And so I've learned also hiring skills and interview techniques and how to spot things from an operational perspective that are barometers for the organization to see where it's heading in 6 months. And so I think it's really important to make sure that you don't just stay in your comfort zone. I just got off a conversation a few minutes ago with my head of engineering, and we went through the hiring pipeline. And it is really critical that all departments work well together, and that I spend time with everyone. Even though my knee jerk sometimes is to plan the New York CISO dinner that I'm planning right now, and inviting some amazing people to chat with. So yeah.
Absolutely. I guess kind of moving into, and you've been in and around security for a long time. Did you find yourself having to become more technical along the way to becoming a CEO? Is that something that you saw?
Yeah. So you need to make sure as the leader of your company that you know the market that you're in, that you understand the buyers, that you understand the problem space, that you understand the day to day for the people that you're selling to, how your product works, how people interact with it. And so that's really important for founders to do. And so the way that I learn, also, I think a separate conversation, but very relevant, is to understand how you learn. And so, me personally, I learn a lot from speaking to other founders, from speaking to engineers, from speaking to customers and learning how they use RAD, and hearing unique stories about finding data exfiltration that's headed to China and PII data that was uncovered by RAD. Learning about how people use our product in a way that I hadn't necessarily always realized too. So I think not only are you having to become more technical if you come from a pure sales or go-to-market background, but you also have to make sure that you understand your learning style so that you can quickly entrench yourself with the people and the systems that work for you.
Absolutely. Did you along the way? You obviously have you held multiple roles within different security organizations. Did you think, starting your own business or wanting to run a business was in the cards? Was that something that you thought about early on?
I thought about that from when I was a kid, and I always thought that I would run a company one day. Even when I was at Rapid7, I always approached as a junior person in my early career business as if, what would I do if I were a CEO? What's in the best interest of the company? How do we move things more efficiently? Um, and so I tend to hate red tape and big company policy and taking a year to make decisions, uh, and creating a ticket for something that could be solved immediately. So it's a different sort of DNA, I think, than big company people, who I admire also tremendously, um, for their ability to navigate the complexities of large organizations. But for me personally, in my DNA, I think startups align nicely.
Absolutely. I guess as you kind of have taken on a new hat, and obviously within a space you're familiar with, and obviously some of the obvious go to market skills, I can definitely see those. But when it comes to becoming a CEO, having that background in go to market in sales, what are some of the intangibles that you've been able to carry through? And you obviously talked about building teams and that stuff, but as a CEO, what are some of those things that you've been leaning on?
In terms of intangibles, I think it starts for us with attitude in terms of hiring and culture. And so, of course, just like any organization, we look for attitude and aptitude. But the best people that work for us have a positive can do attitude. They make stuff happen every day. And so that's what we look for in the interview process. It's what we check for and back channel references. And the people that we've hired all have a can-do attitude, all make stuff happen, all drive things through to execution, all can be critical in terms of the way that they think and punching holes in ideas and strategy, but also tend to lean towards anything is possible. So, I think that works for this stage. Of course, we're going to have to evolve that hiring strategy as we grow. But right now, it's working really nicely for us.
Absolutely. I guess a question within RAD Security now, is there someone who's responsible for sales
Yeah.
and revenue?
I just saw 2 minutes before joining this podcast an offer letter go out. So we have sellers, not just me, although, like you asked earlier, I'm tempted to want to go in, help out. And so I'm actively engaged with lots of people. I've been in security for a long time and established some really good relationships. And so I want to stay connected and involved. But now we have an amazing sales leader who's hired some great people, and so we're really starting to accelerate selling, which is fantastic because it's really impacted our revenue, our longevity, reduced our burn, and so it's critical to the business.
Fantastic. Yeah, the reason I was going to ask is sometimes when I have co-founders on, and let's say they've been technical and they're hiring their first head of engineering, my question to them sometimes is divesting themselves from that role, and you kind of alluded to not find yourself kind of slipping into an old hat because it's comfortable, and obviously the dotted lines to a new person coming into taking over something that you've built from that perspective. I'm just kind of curious. I haven't asked somebody who's done that from the sales side, so I was a little curious. I'm sure it's doable. I'm sure you will too. But yeah.
It's the same thing because as a technical founder, I talk to technical founders all the time. In fact, most founders come from the technical side, and they sometimes will be told by their investors or advisors, like, get out, trust other people. And so not only is it a decision you have to make to scale, but you have to decide when and to look for the proper metrics to decide when. Like, is it time for me to let go a little bit of this function of the business, or do I still need to dig in and own it a little bit more? I've seen engineering leaders who turned CEO step out way too early. And then I've also seen them, and I've worked for companies where they stay in way too long, and it actually slows down the sales process and creates friction. So there are signs. It's just being able to recognize them.
Absolutely. RAD Security, you obviously have talked about you've been in and around the security space for a long time. Where does RAD Security, where's that idea come from? I sometimes I ask because I'm curious, if it's an opportunity you've seen, it's an opportunity that emerged, but where did you see the gap that started RAD Security?
So RAD Security was started with the idea that security organizations are challenged by the fact that the engineering organization needs to run fast. They need to ship code and create high velocity. In most organizations, that's true. And security is often seen as the group that slows that down. And so we wanted to create technology that helped engineering orgs to accelerate, but also for security organizations to help them accelerate with security supporting. And so that was the original vision for the company, and it remains our vision. But we've shifted to now be beyond CADR, Cloud Application Detection and Response, into this new AI agentic world that you see lots of people entering. And so, but still with the same vision and mission in mind.
Absolutely. I guess I had a CISO on the show yesterday, and we were talking about the components that affect them. And the one question I asked him, and I was kind of curious as somebody who's been in security and now running a company selling to different organizations, is we do always hear about security and a lot of the challenges, i.e., not enough people that can do the work, not enough time in the day, all those various things we've heard. So many threats. I mean, obviously, the surface attack has just grown, but we also see security teams stay lean. They stay small, and I guess when you're selling into the security space, knowing some of those things already from having been in go-to-market and sales for a while, I guess how do you craft your approach to kind of knowing something where those dead bodies are buried?
Yeah, so we're hearing from lots of CISOs right now that they're being asked to do more with less, and so our marketing team is fantastic, and they created this whole "Do More with Less" campaign for RAD. And so RAD has capabilities to reduce the average time to generate GRC reports and vulnerability assessment aggregation of prioritization or aggregation of prioritized risk from 30 days in some cases to 30 minutes. And so we've got a super solid efficiency story for CISOs who are being asked to do more with less, which is really helpful to have in this market because security leaders don't need more tools that just cause more alerts and additional manpower. And so any opportunity we can to save time and resources is extremely valuable in 2025, where you're probably not getting more headcount as a CISO. At least that's what we're hearing. It sounds like that's what you're hearing too.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you hear that, and you see the importance of security on the list of every leader out there, and then sometimes you try to balance that with where's the budget that actually kind of matches the quote unquote priority within the hierarchy, and you're like, well, it's not always there. And then he mentioned something interesting, and it was, if nothing's going wrong and everything is going well, it's hard to go ask for more budget because nothing's broken. And I think that's a catch-22 if you're doing a really good job. And I think you're at RAD Security, it sounds like you guys are trying to help engineers, engineering teams move faster and actually get done things at a faster pace as well. So it kind of was an interesting parallel from that discussion to this discussion.
Yeah, it is. And there are security leaders who are hiring plenty right now, but I'm just speaking in generalizations. There are a lot that are being asked to do more with less. And so it is hard. It is hard, especially to your point, if things are status quo right now, how do you get some additional budget or headcount? It is not always easy.
Absolutely. I guess you mentioned you guys are hiring, and with every security company there seems to be an AI component that is where the advantage is going to come from for a lot of these companies. I'm sure that AI is a component of the strategy, a component of the product, but I guess when you look at security and AI, kind of what are your thoughts on that intersection?
Yeah, it is an important point for us. And so we are hiring a person in engineering to help us with our AI agentic agents. And so there's a role that's on RAD's LinkedIn page that's posted there. One that isn't posted that I just talked to my head of engineering about is a backend engineer too. And so that will be posted in the next few days. And then we also are hiring a head of technical partnerships to help us on the go-to-market side. We have lots of partnerships that we're looking to support, and we need somebody to come in and manage those. So if any of your listeners are looking for new opportunities, please apply from our LinkedIn page.
Absolutely. Well, Brooke, I was going to say thank you for coming on and talking to us about your journey and some of the different aspects of security and being a founder, and talk to us a little bit about selling into that space as well. If somebody does want to connect with you to ask a follow-up question, I might not have asked you everything under the sun. What is a good way of connecting with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn at Brooke Motta, Motta, from RAD Security, and just send me a note. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, awesome. Brooke, again, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. That's it for the episode. Be back again. Different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, I love a journey story, and we talked about Brooke's journey from being a sales person in the sales industry, different leadership roles within sales, and becoming a co-founder, CEO. We talked about the space she's working in. Obviously, she has a deep background in security, so it makes a lot of sense to actually be in the space and continue in the space. And we talked about she's hired a go-to-market sales leader and how she's transitioning, partnering. And we talked a little bit about RAD Security and their strategies and their growth. So please share this episode with somebody else who might benefit from it. Also, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the show's going for you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.